The Mystery of BELICENA VILLCA. Second Book. The Letter of BELICENA VILLCA. 61st Day. Thus, we reach to the 20th century, Dr. Signal. And we have reached here, because I've decided to overlook 400 years of the American history of our lineage, and not because the implacable time has guided us to it. Thereby, I will proceed to hasten the end of the letter, due to, I guess that you were tired at the lecture, and I think that now you can comprehend the drama of the House of Farces, and draw your own conclusions. As you know, I descend from the union of Leto of Farces, and Princess Quia, who formed a family that always remained in the place of Pucara of Farsi, in Tafudel Vale, province of Tucuman. During these 4 centuries, many Noyos and Reyes, who guarded the wise sword, including me, as Reya for 10 years, the last 5 in company of my son Noyo. Well, Dr. Signal, to end with the narration in a clear manner, it is only missing to add one word about the reaction of the enemy, who, in those centuries, didn't forget not even for an instant the lords of Farsis, and the wise sword, nor the lineage of Skeold. It seems that, exploring patiently the cultural registers of thousands of worlds of illusion, similar to this, the White Fraternity achieved to reconstruct, with quite approximation the steps that Leto of Farsis did in America. They knew that the lineage of Skeold had traveled towards a secret valley in the province of Jujui, which in trance was sealed with the runes of Neptune, and that Leto of Farsis continued to Tucuman, nevertheless, losing any ulterior trace about his destination. In front of such certainty, the order of Melchizedek disposed that dozens of his best agents be distributed in the zones where the men of stone could be hidden, or in the sites where they could emerge in the future. The wise sword, and the crown of King Coleman, with its damn stones of Venus, would constitute a strategic advantage in the final battle, that in no way the demons of Chang Shampala could permit. But the worlds of the illusion are millions, and, in all of them, the archetypal arguments, the histories of the history, are developing simultaneously. Only in one of those worlds occurs the theme that will be real at the end, when the Lord of the War affirms it from the beginning, as Captain Kiev predicted in San Felix of Karaman. The White Fraternity knows that it will occur, but they can't know a priori which of them will be in the real world of the Lords of Farsis, and for this reason, in the meantime, is forced to deploy their infernal agents, their masters, priests, and initiates, around the ancient route that Leto of Farsis took in America, and in many worlds at the same time. But, this time, they would care to not commit mistakes. For that purpose, they have determined that any sign of the Lords of Farsis, or Skeold, be communicated to Chang Shambhala, with the finality that Beret and Bishwa, in person deal with so vital matter. Thus, will be, Dr. Signal. In the 20th century, but just as thousands of years ago in Farsis, the immortal demons will approach to the awake men, to consume their atrocious vengeance. And to them, as before, only the pure blood will save them, the remembrance of the origin that liberated the uncuttered spirit. Those who have their spirits oriented, perhaps will die in hands of the demons, as I will surely die, but will only achieve to kill an animal body in one world. They will only obtain to an empty skin, vain victory. At the end, when the final battle take place, and the Lord of War affirms the reality of the world of the Spirit, all of us, who have died for the cause of the Spirit, will be alive again to march out of the universe of the One, passing over the potencies of the matter, while in our bags, the final holocaust of the soul's demons will outbreak. We have reached to the 20th century, Dr. Signal, surrounded all over by the agents of the White Fraternity. However, while the wise sword, or the crown of King Coleman, stays behind the cromlechs, the demons could not relate them with the time, and they wouldn't know in which world act. So, we could move, relatively without being noticed, but a thing would change during the last years, when Captain Kiev made himself present to advance instruction about the final battle. From the lineage of Leto, emerged the breaks of many families that still exist in Argentina and other countries. some of them protected from the Gauleans, disguising their origin, or denying genealogical connexions that bind them to the house of Tharsis, but all of them are more or less conscious about this story. However, that distance drifted away them from the Nivreada and the Hyperborean initiation. Therefore, only the members of my family, who had always dwelled in the ranch of Farsi, maintained the cult of the cold fire, and guarded the wise sword. And in the decade of the 70s, even if the lineage didn't run the risk to be exterminated, just remained one Hyperborean initiate, capable to carry out the strategy at the Liberator gods. Me, BELICENA VILLCA. I was widow, and I had just one son, to whom I had sent to Buenos Aires to study a military career, but I didn't hesitate to take the Nivreada when my grandfather, who remained since 30 years ago beside them and her, died in 1967. A new situation occurred. Even if the lineage possessed many members, the initiatic chain threatened to stop relentlessly. Happily, in 1972, my son Noyo returned for my assistance, disposed to receive the Hyperborean initiation, and become an authentic Noyo, guardian of the wise sword. In 4 months, he was prepared, from June to October, and then he died, and reborn as Man of Stone, and he situated by my side, before the Manhur of Farsi, and in front of the wise sword. He had requested his demission from the armed forces to be consecrated to the familiar mission, but his contacts with a nationalist group, integrant of the intelligence services of the army, prevented him the permanent dedication to the guard. The motive was that Noyo didn't want to renounce to what he considered a matter of honor the strife against the Marxist subversion that in those days affected the entire country, and our province in particular. Thanks to his exceptional knowledge of the terrain, and his right criterion to evaluate the strategy of the enemy, and collect information, he was one of the grey minds that aimed from the shadows to thwart the communist guerrilla that pretended to become strong in the mounts of Tucumán. His valuable informs, communicated to the comrades of Buenos Aires, contributed in great measure to trace the plans of Major State that ended with the threat of the guerrilla. Naturally, I was opposed to this activity, apparently not related with the initiatic mission, but Noyo had always repeated that such subversive movement in the vicinity of Charismatic Center was a secure sign of the nigh beginning of the final battle. And he was not wrong, as the Lords of Venus confirmed very soon. All began in 1975, in the days in which the army, at the command of General Edgardo Villas, was dedicated to finish with the last focus of the suburban guerrilla, and started the arduous task to dismantle the urban infrastructure of the subversive organizations. The strong action of the army, that exerted with mathematical precision their plans and annihilation, gave to Noyo enough time to dedicate it to the mission, and since many months, that he met with me in the millenary cromlech. One day, at the end of that year, both of us were deeply concentrated, meditating about the stone of Venus, and the mystery of the cold fire. We had our gaze fixed on the wise sword, and no one of us noticed that a substantial change occurred in the Manhur of Farsi, situated exactly behind the Apache fetter, with the wise sword. One, as milky mist, had invaded the enormous stone which, when we noticed the phenomenon, was not possible to distinguish anymore. However, bit by bit, it became impressing, in the place of the Manhur, the corporeal image of a giant from another world. It was really a double phenomenon, due to the stone of Venus was emerging clearly, and also the image of an unknown place. It was likewise a valley, but in nothing similar to the one of Tafi that Leto of Tharsis saw 400 years before. It possessed 2 rivers that furrowed it longitudinally, just as the rivers Tinta and Odil to the valley of Tharsis in Huelva. And in one extreme, at the west of the figure, it could be appreciated clearly, a hill which exhibited on its slope the entrance to a cavern of runic form. "Grace and honor, blood of Tharsis," said the giant, expressing with his right hand the Bella and we understood that he was Captain Kiev, one of the Lords of Venus. the Captain Kiev, who had bade farewell to our lineage until the final battle, has arrived. The moment, yearned for many centuries, in which the gods will accompany men, in their total confrontation against the potencies of the matter. We hasted to respond the salute, awaiting with expectation his wise words. Hail, farewell, Captain Kiev. And the Lord of Venus spoke us, in this manner. Blood of Tharsis, I bring you the salute of Neptune, the Lord of War. And I also bring you his word. Pay attention, open your senses, because the present is a unique opportunity, the kairos of the final battle. As has always happened, and it could not be another way, due to the infernal site where you are, I have good and bad news for you. The good one consists in the order of the Lord of the War, that I communicate you, is the will of Neptune, that the wise sword be transported to the place that you have seen in the stone of Venus. Such site is a valley, located in the regions of the heart of Argentina, very near to the hill Ergo, the hill Parsifal, where the Lord of the War, in a remote past, deposited his bayonet commandment, next to a fortress, constructed by wise warriors, who knew him as Kekit. Another hill, of the valley, that you shall find, is located a secret cavern, built by the White Atlantans, and protected by the rooms of Neptune. There shall be placed the wise sword. I will ask you, why it must be done, and I will respond, that it consists in one of the fundamental acts of the final battle. It is really about the connection between the gods and the asleep men. The lords of Tharsis, as the lords of Skeold, and other similar lineages, are awake men, who have always counted with a revealed mystery, and a stone of Venus, to obtain the orientation towards the origin, and the Hyperborean initiation. Even to your lineage, was entrusted to initiate in such form to the Lord of the Absolute will and courage, the Führer, of the white race. For this reason, it would be difficult for you to imagine an initiate of the absolute orientation, a Hyperborean pontiff, capable to build in every time and space the indestructible bridge between the created and the uncreated. Such initiate not needs other reference than himself to be oriented towards the origin. He is his own stone of Venus, and he can't be disoriented, neither deceited, nor deviated, in any way from his strategic mission. And that initiate, blood of Tharsis, is already on the earth. A. The Lord of the Absolute Orientation is awaiting for the moment in which the wise sword be placed on the secret cavern, to guide men towards the stone of Venus, to the men who, nevertheless, their immersion in the illusion, manifest the will to liberate the eternal spirit from its material prison. If such connection occurs, the communication between the asleep men and the gods, then inevitably the final battle on the earth will have begun. A. That initiate will found an order of constructors, and will institute its members in the lithic wisdom of the White Atlantans. Then, as I said, will teach them the necessary techniques to find the stone of Venus, even if the same is located behind the rooms of Neptune. Many will be the chosen ones, who will yearn the stone of Venus, the door of the other world, but just one of them will be a Noyo. And that Noyo, who will listen to the language of the birds, he will be capable to find the entrance of the secret cavern, and join to one of you to the wise sword. Therefore, the order of Neptune means that you must approximate the wise sword to the pontiff, who is waiting for it, fulfilling in this way with the last phase of the strategy at the Liberator gods. Blood of Tharsis, I know that you will comply without hesitation the order of the Lord of the War, but, to do it better, I suggest you to heed the bad news that I bring you. Above all, you must have present that the actual world, where you move, out of the cromlech, is under the permanent surveillance of the enemy. It won't result easy, in these conditions, to take the wise sword from the center to move it to the valley of Avalon. Even though the distance in kilometer seems to be very short, in reality, if you don't take the appropriate precautions, you could never reach your destination, even how brief could be the path to travel. Once the wise sword be placed out of the cromlech, its distortion power of the space and time will reveal to the enemy in which world is located the evil, the death of the soul, and towards they will run the immortal demons to avoid the sacrilege of to the law of the One. No. If you don't proceed according to the highest strategy of the essential war, you will never reach to the valley of the three peaks with the wise sword. In second term, and now, I will announce you the bad news. You must consider that the situation will worsen in the measure that the years passes by, until turning completely impossible the meeting between the wise sword and the order of Odeon. Thus, it will be necessary to act in the right moment. The order will search for the wise sword, and will coincide with it in the kairos of the final battle. However, to accomplish this, only one of you shall go with the sword to the valley of the two rivers, and the other will have no more choice than to cover the withdrawal of his brother and comrade. I will not reduce the risks that such tactic means. The one who stays shall attract over him all the attention of the enemy, being prepared to bear an astral and physical pressure far beyond the normal human resistance. But, your Hyperborean imitates, men of stone, yourself is isolated from the soul, by the Varun of Natan, your eternal spirit already glimpses the origin, you have the possibility to resist and win. The one of you who stays, and faces the enemy, perchance, will die in this world. However, his absent will be extended for very little time, until the final battle. I've said that the situation will aggravate. I tell you now that it has already started to worsen. The military forces that supported Noido soon will be debilitated by an offensive of the international synarchy. In the next years, will still operating patriotic forces, but they will lack of politic power. The unpatriotic guerrilla will be military defeated, but the synarchic subversion that generated it, on the contrary, will end seizing from the government of this nation, subordinating immediately the political power to the international economical power. Then, will overcome a state of irreversible financial dependence between the nation and the High World Bank. The conspiracy will aim to convert the nation in a modern colony, a colony which settlers will be invariably members of the chosen people. Although it seems fantastic, million Jews plan to settle in this land. This is not occasional. The election, a Beitu, which seeks to stop or delay as much as possible the final battle, allowing time for the formation of world government of the chosen people, and, because the chosen people suspect that, in some way, this nation will perform a fundamental role during the final battle, is that they had decided to occupy and destroy it. In the diabolic context, you'll have to act, blood of Tharsis. What will happen if you have success? In the best of cases, would occur a triple coincidence. Apart from your encounter with the Pontifex Maximus, the Lord of the Absolute Orientation, caused by this same fact, it can occur, the arising as a thunder of the voice of the people, the charismatic leader of the pure blood. In coincidence with us, and the Pontiff, in the same moment in which the asleep men begin to wake up to the reality of the origin that reveals the stone of Venus, the charismatic leader would be recognized by everyone as the only representative of the regal function, and you will place at the head of this nation, lifting it from its moral and material ruins, in which the synarchic conspiracy sunk it. Days of never-seen splendor will overcome then. The nation would rise as one of the spiritual potencies of the earth. The wise warriors, and the Hyperborean wisdom, as in the times of the Atlantis, would appear at light of the day, while in the rest of the world, the spiritual men would hasten to reach here, and the universal synarchy, and the chosen people would prepare to outbreak the final battle. So, you must not forget the strategy to be followed, the function of the charismatic leader. He will be recognized by everyone, and he will recognize you. If he claims for you, in some moment, to him you must give the aid of the Hyperborean wisdom, to realize with success, the mission to extreme to its highest point, the dramatic tension of the end of history. However, if the charismatic leader not coincide in the Kairos, and not come, the final battle will be likewise inevitable, since the moment in which the asleep men find the stone of Venus, and reunite themselves again, with their extraterrestrial origin, and claim to the gods for the liberation of the spirit. Then, the loyal gods to the spirit of men, as they have decided, since the days of the submersion of the Atlantis, will come to the rescue of the Hyperborean men, for the last time. And that descent, that final battle guided by Neptune, the Lord of the War, and supervised by Emma, the Virgin of Agartha, will signalize the end of the White Fraternity, and their infernal solar abode, the Kalakikaki, of Changshambhala. In sum, your mission will consist to move the wise sword to the secret cavern, in the valley, over the Soto. The age present is the least favorable for the execution of such operation, and for this reason, you must develop separated tactics. One of you will carry the wise sword, while the other will be the decoy to distract the attention of the enemy. Who realizes the first, shall employ with mastery the technique of the strategic opposition, to travel with its valuable charge. It means that the first one will dispose of a bag with enough assortment of lapis oppositions, that's to say, of stones archetypally indeterminated, of stone possesses a boundless dimension, infinite, obtained by the impression of the sign of the origin that you will project on it. The initiate who do so, will travel over a strategic path, unpredictable for the enemy, even when he knows that stone of Venus is moving through the worlds of the illusion. He will go always isolated by the infinite Runica Kemone, and he will put, after each stretch of strategic distance of the labyrinth, a lapis oppositions in the path. He will leave behind, thereby, an insurmountable obstacle for the enemy, a stumbling and deviation stone, a proof of the actual infinite of the eternal spirit. The uncreated principle of the obstacle, of the lapis oppositions, will cause the absolute bewilderment of the enemy. In front of it, there is no possible reference, all the worlds are confused, the illusion become one. And while the enemy recuperates, trying to localize the trace, the Hyperborean initiate will advance in opposition to the potencies of the matter, and new meander of the labyrinth, placing then another lapis oppositions after him. Only in this manner, if he moves in strategic opposition, and he counts with the help of another initiate, who moves simultaneously towards a different direction, attracting over him the interest of the enemy, he will achieve to carry the wise sword to the valley of La Candelaria. The second Hyperborean initiate will carry some lapis oppositions as well, but he will go placing them in more extensive distances, giving time to the enemy to follow his trace, and think that the maneuver is being carried out by just one man of stone, who, sooner or later will be captured. Of course, that if such thing occurs, if the enemy achieve to seize from the second initiate, the operation will be fulfilled anyway, but no one will save him from the reprisals of the immortal demons. These are the risks that you will have to run, to comply with the order of the Lord of War. To you correspond to decide who will carry the wise sword, and who will distract the enemy, and discover the opportunity, the Kairos, to act. Lord Tharsis, I have said what I had to say, and it is not convenient, for strategic motives, to add anything else. I reiterate the salute of Neptune, and I bid you farewell, until the next coincidence in the Kairos of the final battle. Grace and honor, blood of Tharsis. Wish the Lord of Venus once again for us, raising his right arrow to express the Bella Madre. Hail, Captain Kiev. We responded, realizing the Bella Madre as well, which has always been the secret salute of the House of Tharsis.